Hi, welcome to lessonswithtroy.com. I'm Troy Brenningmeyer. Well, this is volume number 1 of my Weissenborn Basics series. So we're back to the Weissenborn. I did a few lessons on the site, some different songs, but what this series is we're starting from scratch. I'm showing you the basic fundamentals of tuning, of picks, of playing with your fingers, chords, scales, licks, all kinds of different things to get you going playing the Weissenborn. Or if you have an acoustic guitar laying around and you don't have a Weissenborn, or if you have a dobro, whatever, you can put it in this open D tuning because it's what's called a slack key tuning. Slack key meaning you're actually loosening the strings in comparison to a normal guitar tuning. Whereas a dobro tuning, like a GBD dobro tuning, you're actually tightening the strings. I wouldn't suggest putting a dobro tuning on a Weissenborn or an acoustic guitar because it's really hard. It's really hard on the instrument. That's a really tight tuning. It's hard on the neck, hard on the bridge. But a slack key tuning works great. So if you have an acoustic guitar laying around, these lessons will be perfect for you. We're starting off with the basic fundamentals. We've got lots of tablature, lots of stuff to learn in this one, so it looks like that. Go ahead and print it out and set it on a stand in front of you, and I'm going to move on through and teach you as much as I can in this Weissenborn Basics volume number 1. Let's go and get going. Okay, so to start off, we just want to answer the basic question of what is a Weissenborn and what makes it different than a dobro or resonator guitar, a lap steel, or a acoustic guitar even, and who are some of the players that are playing this now that you can check out. Okay, first off, it gets its name from a guy named Herman Weissenborn, who manufactured these around the 1920s, 1930s out in Los Angeles, California. So that's where it gets its name from. And now you might say Weissenborn style guitars because there's different manufacturers that make these. The guy that made mine is named Bill Harden, and he's out at Bear Creek Guitars out in California. And it's made from a wood called koa wood. It has a beautiful grain to it. Now this differs from a dobro or a resonator guitar in that it doesn't have a resonator. You do set it on your lap and play it, but there is no resonator. It's more like an acoustic guitar in that it has a sound hole right there. That's where the sound comes out. Okay, mine's totally acoustic. I don't have any electronics or anything in it, but you could get a pickup put in them if you wanted to. It's tuned to open D, I said that before, and that slack key tuning is real important because that signature feature of the Weissenborn is that hollow neck. So it doesn't really take a tight tuning like a dobro tuning. So you got to use slack key tunings, loosen those strings so it's not as hard on the neck. So as you can tell, this is probably redundant, but the strings are real high, so we're not going to be playing it like an acoustic guitar. You're going to be using what's called a slide or a bar or a steel, and you'll put that on the string, and that's how you get your different notes to come out. So let's talk about real quick how to just basically set it on your lap. Real self-explanatory. You just want to make sure your legs aren't closed in like that, kind of spread them apart so that your left leg is under the neck of the instrument and your right leg is supporting the body of the instrument. And it should just be real stable on there. Make sure it's not sliding off or anything. And this is the angle you'll see in these basic series lessons. So you can see the right hand and the left hand. Let's talk a little bit about some different artists that are really bringing the Weissenborn to life and making some cool music with it. I don't want to miss anybody, so I'll kind of look down here. David Lindley, Ben Harper. There's a lot of artists in Australia or New Zealand that play this instrument too. Thomas Oliver's one, Andrew Winton, Xavier Rudd, and of course, here in the U.S. we've got Jerry Douglas, Andy Hall. I believe Rob Ickes plays one of these. Rob Anderlich out of Chicago plays one. He's got some good videos on YouTube. And my buddy Dan Spitz, formerly of the band Anthrax, he's really making some cool music with the Weissenborn. So check him out, Dan Spitz, S-P-I-T-Z. That's his last name. And this thing is really having a resurgence, I think, and a lot of popularity. And there's a lot of really great manufacturers out there that's making some great instruments. Well, that being said, I think I covered everything. let's go ahead and I'll show you how to tune it and what strings and what string gauges I use. Okay, so I want to talk about what brand of strings and what gauge of strings that I'm using. Okay, first of all, I'm using John Pierce Weissenborn steel guitar strings. They're phosphor bronze wound, and they're specific for open D tuning. So if we turn this over, you can see what the gauge of each string is. So if we start with that D, our first string, our highest string, right, that's a 0.015. And then A, our second string, is 0.018. F sharp, our third string, is 0.027. Our D string, our fourth string, is 0.038. Our A string, or our fifth string, is 0.048. And our lowest, that string, our sixth string, is 0.060. Okay, so those are the string gauges that I'm using. Once again, John Pierce phosphor bronze wound steel guitar strings for open D tuning. So real quick, let's just go through the tuning of this. Okay, so if we start with our sixth string, that's a D, and then our fifth string, A, fourth string, D, third string, F sharp, second string, A, and first string, D, D, A, D, F sharp, A, D. So my suggestion is just to use a tuner and to get all the strings tuned up, you know, to where it's perfectly in tune with a tuner. Now, that being said, if you get all the strings tuned up perfectly in tune with a tuner and you've got a good ear and you strum all your strings and something sounds a little weird, and if you hear that third string sounds a little weird when played with all your other strings, what you might want to do is what's called tempering this third string. That just means you're going to loosen it or lower it just a little bit until it blends in with all the other strings. Okay, this third string is the note F sharp. It's, not to get too much into music theory, but it's the major third of our chord, and that major third wants to be a little flat in comparison with what it would be in perfectly in tune with a tuner. And what that does is that lets it blend with the other strings a little bit better. But if all I'm saying right now is really confusing to you, just tune everything with a tuner, don't worry about it, and as your ear gets a little better, keep in mind that how that third string sounds with all your other strings when you play it. Now I have loosened this a little bit, so if you're playing along and you hear that third string and you hear that it's, you know, a little flat to what yours is, that's because I've loosened it just a little bit so that it blends with my other strings a little bit better. And I learned that from playing dobro, that you know, the major third of that chord wants to be just a little flatted to blend with the other notes of the chord. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on now. We've got the tuning down and what strings I use and gauges and all that, and let's move on. Okay, just a little tidbit of information here before we move on. Those string gauges that I mentioned work really well with this particular Weissenborn and its scale length. This particular Weissenborn has what's called a 25-inch scale length. Now, if you were like me, I had no idea what a scale length was or how to figure it out or anything. Well, anyways, here's how you figure out the scale length of your Weissenborn, is that if you take right where the string touches the nut, and you start there, and then you measure all the way to where the string touches the bridge, that's your scale length. Now, if you use inches, mine from the right where the string touches the nut until right where the string touches the bridge is exactly 25 inches. So this is called a 25-inch scale length. So just a little tidbit of information if you ever are asked what the scale length of your Weissenborn is. That's a neat thing to figure up. So just take a measuring tape and you can figure that out. Okay, let's move on. Okay, I wanted to talk real quick about playing with finger picks, which is what I'm going to be using throughout this series, versus playing with your fingers, fingernails, or using something like the Alaska pick, which is kind of in between a finger pick and your fingernail. I started off with dobro, so I'm using a finger pick on my index finger, a finger pick on my middle finger, and a thumb pick. Now just real quick, that's what it looks like as far as wearing these finger picks. And that's about the height that I keep them at. And if you're putting these on, just real quick, kind of self-explanatory, don't make the mistake of putting them on backwards like that. That would be backwards. That's backwards. You want to put that smooth part of the pick on the smooth part of your finger. Now I use Pro Pick. If you can see, let's see, it'll zoom in on it. There it is. Pro Pick finger picks. They're a double band straight blade finger pick, and I use, for my thumb pick, I use this plastic Zuki's thumb pick. Now there is a really popular thumb pick out right now called a blue chip thumb pick that Jerry Douglas and Rob Ikes and lots of people use. It's fairly expensive compared to just your regular plastic thumb pick. It's like $40 or so. But a lot of people swear by it and say it produces a really great tone, and it doesn't wear out like a lot of these thumb picks do. So let me show you the difference between playing with your fingers versus playing with finger picks. Okay, so let me play. Here's with finger picks. There's my thumb pick. Now, whether you're playing with your fingers or finger picks, make sure you play over the sound hole. It gives you a really good tone. If you play back here to your bridge, closer to the bridge, it gives you a much different sound. Okay, now with just my fingers, keep in mind I don't have any fingernails and the fleshy part of my finger is pretty soft. It's almost like I'm whispering. So it's great if you want that real soft, mellow sound. Now the more you play with just your fingers, the more you'll get calluses, and that'll kind of brighten up that sound and give you a little bit more volume too. Or if you grow your fingernails out, play like more of a classical player plays. Now some people, a lot of Weissenborn players play not just with 2 fingers and a thumb, they'll play with 3 fingers and a thumb. Now I'm going to play more like a dobro just because I'm used to it, and that's what my tablature is going to be like. But keep in mind what these other people do in case you wanted to try that out, that technique of using 3 fingers. I'm sure there's people out there that even uses 4 fingers and a thumb, but get that in tune. So a lot softer with just your fingers than it is with finger picks. Now let me show you these other picks called Alaska picks. Like I said, it's kind of in between a finger pick and your fingernail. Basically, here's what it looks like. Okay, it's going to go over your finger, but it has a little slit there that is actually going to go under your fingernail. It's almost like a weird torture device. It kind of feels weird when it goes under your fingernail, honestly. I just literally got these out of the package to show you on the video, so I haven't put a lot of time into them or anything. But a lot of people use them and put them on even 3 fingers if you want, and it kind of gives you an artificial fingernail. Now I got another one here. You can use fingernail clippers and you can trim these to size exactly to where you want. So if you've got the interest and you want to use these, by all means, give them a try. But they do feel a little awkward to me. I'm going to stick with finger picks just because I'm used to them. But this is kind of cool because it's going to give you the feeling of the string hitting your finger, but then as the string comes off, it's going to hit that Alaska pick. That's what these are, Alaska pick, and kind of like an artificial fingernail. Okay, so you can give those a try too. Like I said, You don't have to do it exactly the way I'm doing it, but I'm going to be using finger picks because, like I said, I started off with dobro and that's what I'm used to. Well, let's get into some basic right hand technique now.